What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to show you my top 3 exercises to unlock the straight arm press to handstand. Whether you're working on straddle, on tuck, or on the full version, I got you covered. So without further ado, let's get to the video. Alright, family, the press to handstand, it's a very complex skill. It's one of my favorite skills, if not my favorite skill. For a full tutorial, you can check our previous tutorial. I think was done 2 years ago, which you can check it up right here, because it's a move that requires wrist extension mobility, it requires shoulder mobility, it requires hamstring flexibility, it requires control and coordination, scapular strength, among many other things. On this video, I'm going to show you my top 3 exercises that I actually did before achieving the press. However, I want to be mindful that even though I'm going to be doing regressions for beginners and also to advanced practitioners, if you don't have a 10-second solid handstand and ideally an L-sit, then the press to handstand is not worth training for, even though the move that you're doing here, if you scale it down enough to reap the benefit of those moves, you can begin training for the press to handstand. As a reference, I got the press to handstand at about 2 to 3 months after I got my first handstand hold, and it's because I was doing these exercises combined with hamstring flexibility and other movements. If you want to stretch your hamstring, check the core compression follow-on routine, which is over here, and also stick to the end of the video because we're going to put all the 3 exercises together into a full routine, and I'm also going to give you a secret tip to how to incorporate all the 3 exercises and how to get the most amount of benefits from the 3 exercises. Without further ado, let's get to the first exercise. This is my favorite exercise, not only for the press, but for the handstand as well. I did it at the beginning of my handstand journey, and it completely shifted my awareness on the handstand, and it also, I think it was the one that actually got me the press so fast. What I'm talking about is handstand negatives. Let me actually demonstrate the exercise first. You're gonna need a wall, that's it, and then we'll go through some modifications and what is this exercise good for. So, handstand negative, we begin by kicking up, because we cannot press up if you're watching this video, which you can use it also if you have a press to increase the amount of presses that you can do. But if you don't have a press, you simply kick up into your handstand. That's why I want you guys to have a handstand first. You kick up into your handstand, legs straight, find your stability first, posterior to your pelvis, and then get off the wall using your fingers. And then we come down as slow and as controlled as possible. That is the hardest version. I'm also going to be showing you the straddle version and the tuck. Let me demonstrate the tuck, and then we'll talk about the straddle. Tuck will be right here. Now, I know what you guys are thinking, especially if you tried this exercise before, is, Gabo, I cannot come down like that. I'm going to just smash the floor and I come down super fast. That is absolutely normal at the beginning. So at the beginning, the move will look something like this. Kick up. And that's fine, even if you just smash the floor. Now, ideally, you're gonna find a progression that at least you get 1 second negative. But you're going to realize that as you kick up against the wall and you begin lowering down, even if you don't have a handstand, which I said that you should have a handstand before training for this move, but let's say that you still cannot find balance. As you kick up against the wall and you do this move over and over, because our hips are stacked and because certain techniques that I'm only talking about right now, you might find yourself getting off the wall and actually finding like 2 to 3 seconds of balance that you didn't even intend to do, because the idea is to actually come down. But the movement itself and the repetition of this movement is what actually gets you that awareness and build that awareness towards the handstand and towards the press. Why do I love this exercise? Is because it's basically a negative version of the press to handstand. And we know that we are stronger on the negative portion, and the negative portion not only builds a strength in that movement pattern, but it also teaches us the entire movement. We're going through the entire range of motion, we're just going in reverse. Let's go through some tips and modifications to do this exercise. Before we get into that, reps and sets, ideally you want to be doing 3 to 5 sets of at least 8 to 10 reps in a row. That means that you kick up, you lower down, you kick up right away, lower down. You can begin with 5 to 8 and build it up so you can do 10 to 15 you can begin with 3 sets and then build it up to 5 sets. Again, stick to the end of the video, which you're gonna have the full routine, including all these exercises, plus a little tip. Technique and modifications. The most important thing here is as your legs are coming down, you're going to send the hips forward towards the wall. That leaning forward can come from a simple slight anterior pelvic tilt, which is absolutely normal as you're coming down, or leaning with more wrist extension. Just do not overcomplicate where the compensate or where the leaning is coming from. Just think about the hips coming towards the wall as your legs are coming down. First tip. Second tip, imagine that your feet don't want to come down, but they want to come even past your toes. They might not land here, they might land here depending on your hamstring mobility and flexibility, but if your intention is to drive them forward, then you are gonna compress your body as much as possible, which is one of the main purposes of this exercise, and the press to handstand is compressing our body, which is getting our thighs to touch our chest as much as possible. Let me talk about those cues as we do the exercise. I'm gonna start with the hardest one, which is the full version, then we go into the tuck, and then we go into the straddle. So, hands shoulder width apart, externally rotate the shoulders, push the ground away already before you kick up, find your kicking dominant leg. I recommend that you switch between one and another, but if you really suck on one side, you can practice a kick up on another time and do this exercise with only one side. Here, arms completely straight, shoulders slightly behind the wrist, just stack the shoulders, stack the hips, reach up, you get towards the wall. First, find your balance, don't get crazy coming down super fast. Heels are together, quads are engaged, glutes are engaged. From here, use your fingers to press down, and here send the hips towards the wall. Use the fingers so you don't smash the wall, so you're preventing with your fingers the leaning forward. If my hips are on top of my shoulders, I got the control. If my hips begin going behind, then I fall. Keep leaning, feet, imagine like the feet wants to go past my wrist. That is the correct way to do it. I'm gonna show what happens if you don't lean with your hips towards the wall. So if you're here, you kick up, you press. If my hips come down, my entire body will come down and you will smash the floor. So even if you're coming fast, as I said, once you try this exercise for the first time, you might come 1 second, but you might surprise yourself that if you do this often enough, I'm gonna talk about at the end of the video, then you're gonna be seeing 1 second, then 1.2 seconds, 1.3 seconds, and you're gonna be coming slower and slower every time that you do the exercise and every time that you repeat the exercise for the following days. That is the full version. Again, do not get discouraged if your legs are coming down way too fast. Simply lean more forward, work on having those hips on top of the shoulders. That is absolutely key. When we press up, if I do a press up, if my hips are low, there is no way I can lift up. That's why it seems so impossible at the beginning. But the trick is to get those hips on top of the shoulders. Once they're on top of the shoulders, then everything becomes so much easier. You want to teach your body in this particular exercise to keep the hips as your limbs are moving up and down. Again, if you don't have the hamstring flexibility to at least, let's say, at least be here, you can do this test for yourself. If you cannot get more than here, which is at about 80 to 70 degrees from your limbs to your torso, then you might have a hard time with this exercise. We're gonna talk about the tuck for that reason. But again, do not get discouraged. As long as you feel it on your core coming down, as long as you are teaching your body to keep the hips on top. And anyways, if you're coming down super fast, again, as long as you're keeping the hips forward, even though you're coming down super fast, you are doing 10, 12, 15 handstands already, kick-ups, plus trying to balance, or even if you don't try to balance, as I said, you're gonna find like 2 or 3 seconds of balance as you're coming down. It's a win-win-win for whichever side you see it. As I said, I included this exercise when I had like 5 to 10 second handstand hold, and I think that was the reason why it got me so fast on the press, plus the other 2 exercises, plus the tip that I'm gonna give you at the end. That's the full version. If that's too hard, or if you're working on the straddle or on the tuck, you can practice these 2. As a personal reference, I never did the straddle. Obviously, my first press to handstand was a straddle press just because it's easier, but I never did it on a straddle. However, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. And if you're able to come down slower in a straddle or in tuck, definitely go for a progression that you can hold it, control that negative as slow and as controlled as possible. Let's go to the straddle first. Kick up, push, tall, keep pushing tall as much as possible the whole time. Go into a straddle. Don't go into full straddle, that's gonna put you in anterior pelvic tilt. So go into like a semi-straddle. From here, posterior pelvic tilt, lean forward and come down. As your legs begin coming down, you can begin open to distribute the weight. And the same deals apply. My legs trying to go past my hands, not behind my hands. Again, if you come down for 1 second, do not worry. Build it up to the point that you can really come down slow and you might surprise yourself, and understand that this portion right here is the hardest one. So if you can just control from here to here for like 2 seconds and then just match the floor, that's totally fine. You're gonna be building that range over time. The last variation is gonna be a tuck handstand, which is maybe the easiest one. You kick up, then from here, push tall. You're gonna slide the feet down into like a tuck position, point your toes, tuck your pelvis so it's in a posterior pelvic tilt. From here, bring the quads and the thighs as close to your core as possible. This motion right here, so from here to here, keep leaning, keep leaning, keep leaning, and then come down. On the tuck is the only one that your hips suddenly or quicker go past your shoulders or go behind the shoulders, but it's also the position that allows you to compress them more in this motion, depending on your hamstring flexibility, but the full version is gonna be requiring more strength and more control. I recommend to play around with the 3 of them, see which one works for you, and enjoy the games. I'll see you in exercise number 2. All right, family, we continue with the exercise number 2. This one is another one of my favorite and one that I use a lot, especially on my yoga practices. It's an exercise. The press to handstand requires a lot of scapula strength and wrist mobility and hamstring mobility, but it also requires the control of that core. When we do the first exercise, we are involving the scapula, which if your arms are not strong enough, then it might be a hard exercise. What I'm talking about on this exercise is gonna be headstand presses, which is basically replicating the same movement that we do on a handstand straight arm press, but without involving our arms. What that's gonna do is teach us how we can control our core, the lower portion, or from here to here, without getting tired, without tiring our hands. You're gonna be able to do this 100% before you actually do the press to handstand, and you can actually accumulate reps in that movement without, again, tiring up your shoulders. Headstand, I'm gonna show 2 variations, the bound headstand and the tripod headstand. And if you cannot do the press that I'm about to show you, go for negative. So you go into a headstand and then you lower down into your legs, just like we did with the first exercise. And last point I wanna mention before showing the exercise is please be safe. Headstands are not for everyone. I got a headstand tutorial, I'm gonna look it up right here. Make sure you watch that and make sure you are safely putting your head and using your arms to support your body, and use a wall. I'm gonna do it without the wall, but you can use the wall because you can do the negative just like we did with that exercise. Just be safe, it's your head, and I really want you guys to be as safe as possible. So headstand, the first one is bound headstand. Again, for the full headstand tutorial, just down in the description or up there, because I don't wanna go into too much detail on the headstand itself, but more on the presses of the exercise. So, bound headstand, you place your head, not your forehead, not the back of your head, but the center, the crown of your head. You support with your arms, you protract your scapula to create stability in your body, and from here, we press up. Now, if you cannot press up, you're gonna work on this. From here, you either kick up or get into your headstand, how you normally do it, and then lower your legs down, shift the hips slightly forward, and control it. If you're doing negative, you stop right here, and then you kick up. If you're doing presses, you stop right here, and you press back up. Engage your glutes as you get to the top, fully extending the hips, and then coming down, ideally slower than that. You can go for either 3 to 5 negatives, or you can go for 3 to 5 presses, depending on your level. So always begin with the wall, and then work your way out of the wall so you can find that balance of not falling forward. Remember that falling out of a headstand is way dangerous than falling out of a handstand. Handstand you can twist, on a headstand you're basically, especially the bound headstand, you are like stuck in there. The second headstand variation is gonna be a tripod headstand, which is we create a 90-degree angle with your hands. Hands are about a forearm distance apart, or shoulder width slightly wider, and you place the head forward, creating a triangle. So ideally your arms end up in kind of a 90-degree angle. From here, lift your hips up. I'm not gonna press up to show how you can get into your headstand easier if you don't have the positive portion. Here, one leg here, tuck, up, from here, come down. You either do negatives and then you go back up like I just showed, or you go and you press again. And then you lower down. Bound headstand, tripod headstand, either negative with the wall, either negative without the wall, either the full reps. Accumulate that time under tension, and that's gonna build an incredible amount, especially of awareness in your core and your hip flexors and your glutes once you get to the top, without tiring up your shoulders, which is a great addition to your handstand training, because when we train handstand, especially the first exercise, your shoulders are gonna be tired, but for that one, at the end of the video, to get the full routine. I'll see you in exercise number 3. All right, family, for exercise number 3, we got a pretty common one for press to handstand, so let's go through it. It's going to be the pike walks. I actually show the exercise first, and then we go through some modifications, variations, and way to do it. Pike walks, you basically walk in a press position from here, forward, here, 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 go here. Now, the beauty of this exercise is that we're working on that last range of motion, which is the hardest portion of the press, which is this one right here, holding yourself here. Now, I don't expect you guys to go here and like dance and do like toe taps and then go forward. That won't happen unless you actually have the press. So we're working towards the press. So I'm gonna give you 2 modifications, which is the straddle and the full, actually just one modification, but some tips to actually make it work for you, and just understand that a half of a second of a takeoff of your feet is more than enough to actually reap the benefits of this exercise. So from here, you lean forward, you push the ground away, so elevation as much as you possibly can, extend and rotate the shoulders, lean forward. That's why wrist extension is so important. My feet are in a plantar flex position. From here, once you feel like you cannot lean anymore, you're going to flex. Here, flex, and then go forward. Try to stack the hips on top of the shoulders as much as possible. From here, lean, flex, and then go forward. You can also go a little bit wider or make it a little bit easier. Lean forward, here, toe tap, and go forward. Open, lean, toe tap, and then go forward. Again, even half of what I just did in seconds is going to be more than enough. It's accumulating time in that negative portion, which is gonna work on your core and your hip flexors. But more than anything, what we're working here is the leaning component of the press, which wasn't target on the previous exercise, a little bit on the first one, but here we have to lean even more to just get a little bit of takeoff of our feet. The next one is going to be a straddle. Now on a straddle, just remember that it's not that the wider you go, the easier, just because if you see me from the side, on a straddle, my hips are way lower than my shoulders, so it's very hard to stack them. You're gonna start on a semi-straddle, and for the straddle press is when you go up, is when you open the legs. So you begin on a semi-straddle that allows you to get those hips on top of your shoulders. From here, same drill, make sure you go a little bit wider. Lean, use those shrugs, those trap muscles to press the ground away. From here, point, flex, go forward. Here, you might not be here, you might be here, flex, and go forward. Quick point that I want to mention before I completely forget, this applies also for the first exercise and for the second exercise. A straight arm press doesn't mean a straight legs press, meaning that if you're doing this exercise and you don't have the mobility on the hamstring yet, which I recommend that you actually work on that, it's gonna make your life so much easier. You can bend your legs a slightly bit, as long as you're pushing tall and your arms are completely straight. It'll look something like this. You're here, legs slightly bent. That way you can create that anterior pelvic tilt, which is necessary at the beginning of the press to stretch the hamstrings and to create into this compressed position as much as possible. Here, legs slightly bent, and go here, and go forward. Eventually, over time, you're gonna begin strengthening the legs and have them as straight as possible. You're gonna be doing that by doing L-sit and by doing some hamstring work. That is for the full, that's for the straddle. Again, 1 second is more than enough. In terms of reps and sets, you can go 5 forward and 5 back. I'm gonna demonstrate that one right now. So that, and 3 to 5 sets, but again, stick to the end of the video to know that. From here, let's say I finish the last set forward, the last rep, which is, you can go 5 and then 5 back. To go back is a bit tricky. If you actually lean forward, point, then you flex, and then you keep leaning forward to create that sensation of floating. So let's be realistic here. Let's say this is enough. That's more than enough. You walk back, here is enough. Let's be more realistic. You have your legs bent because of your mobility, your hands are maybe forward because you don't have that mobility. You still lean forward, you do the best that you can, and then lean back. That one is a little bit tricky. I would spend some time first going forward, and once you get used to going forward with the straddle and then with the pull, then you can begin adding the coming back as well. That's it for exercise number 3. I'll see you on the final tip and the full tip. All right, family, that's it for my top 3 exercises for the press to handstand. If you guys want part 2, please leave it in the comment section down below. I have many exercises for the press to handstand, but if I had to pick 3, especially at the beginning of the press to handstand journey, those would be it. Those were the ones that I use, and those are the ones that I highly recommend, and I've used it for many clients, and they get the press to handstand pretty fast. With that being said, I'm gonna begin with the tip, and then we're gonna go through the full routine. The tip, slow down, is simply to use active rest. You've probably seen it in many of our videos, and also if you follow our programs from the academy, you know that we do a strength set and then we incorporate some mobility work in the middle of those sets to maximize the training that we're about to do. Obviously, that resting position needs to be smart. It's not that you're training for the press and then you're gonna be opening your thoracic spine. I mean, that could be it, but ideally you want to match it so it's a movement facilitator of the exercise that you're going to do. So I'm going to give you 3 active rests. You can choose, pick and choose depending on your own limitations. Those 3 active rests are going to be in the middle of the 3 moves that we did for the full routine, which is how I recommend that you guys approach this training. The active rests are going to be my favorite that I do in many of the videos. Seated forward fold, anterior pelvis, chest go forward, and simply go here. You can do it passively. There is nothing wrong with doing a passive stretch during this workout, just because we do want to create length in our hamstrings and we're not contracting our hamstrings, meaning that we're not going to be losing power on the exercise. We're actually be contracting more our anterior side. So stretching the posterior side is a good idea. So we're going to a seated forward fold for X amount of resting time in between exercises. First one. Second one, you're going to a straddle, especially if you're working on a straddle press to handstand. Going to a straddle is never a bad idea. Same deal, anterior pelvic tilt, lean forward, and if you are here, whichever you are, or if you are completely here. Also, if you cannot sit on a 90-degree position, simply elevate your sit bones a little bit so you create that elevation. If you still struggle to be on the floor, then I would recommend the 2 stretches that we just did, but standing up. So you will go here, you relax here in your resting time, or you relax here on your resting time. You can also do some pulses if you like, but I like to do some static with a little bit of movement just to calm down the nervous system before I attack the next set. The third active rest is going to be for our shoulders, because the press to handstand do require a lot. I mean, it doesn't require hamstring flexibility, especially because I mentioned that your legs can be bent. But if you have hamstring flexibility, it's going to make the press so much easier and also so much cleaner. So even if you have a press and maybe it's not that clean because your legs are bending a little bit, opening the hamstrings is always a good idea. But you might also see some presses with the straight legs that might look something like this. I don't want to go all the way up. That requires a tremendous amount of strength because you're basically mini planching, and it also doesn't look that pretty. What that person is lacking, if you are the one that are doing that type of press, it is simply shoulder mobility. So the third active rest is going to be wall shoulder opener. Now go against the wall, you accelerate the shoulders, and you relax into the stretch. If you tend to be hypermobile than me, like me, do not open your shoulders like this. Create some stability and simply work here. Also create a small posterior pelvic tilt so you can focus more on the shoulders and not so much on your thoracic spine. Again, you can do some pulses, you can do some active and then relax, whichever feels good in your body, especially if you're resting. You can also use a low bar right here, very quickly. Just open the shoulders right here. Whichever you have, just open the shoulders in the middle of your set. And these 3 exercises, I'm gonna give you now the full routine, which is doing the first exercise with an active rest, the second exercise with an active rest, the third exercise with an active rest. The active rests are going to be for reference, varying depending on So we have like different active rests. However, if your shoulders, let's say that you have more than or 180 degree or a little bit more, but in your hamstrings you are right here, I would highly recommend that you do the 3 active rests for the hamstrings, and the same applies to the opposite. If you have a lot of hamstring flexibility but your shoulders still not get to 180 degree, maybe do the 3 active rest, a shoulder opener, either with a bar or either with a wall. The routine is going to be right now. You can screenshot it. 3, 2, 1. And we're back. So that's it, guys, for this video. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got some value out of it. Let me know if you want part number 3. Let us also know what else you want to see on this channel. If you want to really unlock the press to handstand, it is included in our hand balancing expansion program within the academy, which is our intermediate to advanced hand balancing program. We also got hand balancing foundation, which is if you have zero experience with handstands, I got you covered to build that foundation for the press to handstand. And also on the beginner program, we are also opening always the shoulders, the hamstrings, the wrist, and everything that is needed to have a solid handstand, to reduce the pain on the wrist, and to really have a long-lasting and safe journey. If you're new to this channel, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell button so you don't miss any future videos. Like and share. And with that being said, I'll see you all next week. Much love. Oh yeah. Subscribe.